Hello everyone, this is Hamid Sharif, and in this video we'll be talking about assignment 1 on the CELTA course, or focus on the learner, because centers with a name assignments like put them in a different order. So if I'm saying assignment 1 here, I mean focus on the learner. Now basically what we need to know is that all CELTA assignments are 750 to 1000 words. Okay, so just make sure you are within the word count or within the word limit when you're writing your assignment. Now, regarding assignment 1, you will need to write about the group of learners that you are teaching on the first part of the course. Now, it doesn't matter whether this is the first assignment you're doing or the last assignment you're doing. You will normally write about the group you're teaching. Now, normally to collect data for this assignment, you will need to interview the students or the learners. You will need to take notes about the students you're teaching, about their weaknesses, their strengths. In some centers or in most centers, they will provide you with a needs analysis in which you can use to complete some information or some details about the learners. Okay, it will help you a lot in collecting data. Now, the assignment basically has three main sections. The first part is the group profile. The second part is strengths and weaknesses in relation to grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. In some other centers with some other tutors, they will ask you to highlight strengths and weaknesses related to skills like reading, listening, speaking, writing, plus the language. So it depends on how your assignment is written, on how the guidelines are written. So please make sure you read your assignment guidelines carefully. And in part 3, you will need to mention or to describe 2 activities based on 2 of the weaknesses mentioned in part 2. So, for example, if you mention 10 weaknesses in part 2, you will need to select 2 of them and come up with activities that will help students improve. Sometimes, again, in some centers, they will ask you to list some weaknesses related to grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So you will choose 2 weaknesses from there, maybe 1 weakness from grammar, 1 weakness from vocabulary or pronunciation, and think of activities to help students improve. And I'm going to show you now how the performa or the template that you will be filling, how it looks like and what you need to complete. Of course, the completion and deadline, again, it's up to the center, so you should find it in the timetable. Okay. And regarding the references, these are some of the main references that you can use in the assignment. Please do not use Google. Please do not use the internet because it's not always helpful. It's not always trusted. So make sure to follow these resources. Also, these are some of the course books that might help you find some activities that will help students improve or deal with the problems mentioned in the second part. Now let's have a look at the performance, the one you will be completing. So you see how you will be filling in. So for example, in focus on the learner, the first assignment, you will normally find the first page as the criteria page. And then you don't have to write anything on the first page except for your detail like the name, submission date, and the word count. On the second page, starting from the group profile, you will find that I have divided them or into 2 sections. The first one is the number, level, age, etc. So you will need to mention these details in the first box as a paragraph. And then in the second box, you will need to mention their length of learning, length of time learning English, motivations, etc. And again, it should be in a paragraph. Moving on to the second part about the strengths and weaknesses. For my assignment, I'm asking students to highlight some strengths and weaknesses in relation to these 3 categories: grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. And you will need to mention some examples. In the weaknesses, again, you will need to mention some weaknesses in relation to grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. And you will need to mention the rationale for each weakness, like why do students have this problem? Why do you think? And again, you can get some ideas about their problems from a book that is called Learner English by Michael Swan. So make sure your comments are relevant and the rationale is basically related to the weaknesses mentioned and it's realistic. And again, in part 3, for example, you will need to choose two of the weaknesses here, two of the weaknesses you mentioned here, just two of them. Okay, so let's imagine, for example, in the grammar, you mentioned three areas that students have problems with. In the vocabulary, you mentioned three areas. In the pronunciation, you mentioned three areas. You will just need to select one area from each part, like grammar and vocabulary, for example, or grammar and pronunciation, vocabulary and pronunciation, just two problems. And you will need to think of solutions or activities that will help students improve. Okay. Now, you will need to describe the activity, like what the activity is, how you would use it with the students, and why you think it would meet the learner's needs. Like, do they enjoy pair work? So you will give them an activity in which they need to speak. Do they enjoy working individually? So the activity is, for example, an individual activity, etc. You will also need to mention the aim and stage, which stage you will be using it in. For example, is it in the controlled practice stage or is it in the freer practice stage? And again, everything here will be in a paragraph format. And activity two will be here. And please do not forget to add a screenshot of the activity itself that you will be using with the students. Okay, you will need to attach it here after the aim and stage. You can just attach the screenshot, or you can add it after the boxes. It's absolutely fine as an appendix. Um, Make sure you add the word count minus the count of the actual document. Okay, so this document, for example, is 338. So make sure your word count is minus these words. Now I'm gonna show you a sample. It's not a complete sample for the assignment. It's just a guide. You will not find everything filled in. So again, it's just a sample. So make sure to follow it, but also make sure to fill in all the boxes. Okay. So this is the sample. Okay. Now, for example, this is how you can mention the number, the age range, etc. So you can put it this way. If you would like to divide the table into these sections, it's fine. If you would like to keep it as one section, it's also fine. Both are absolutely fine. And then moving here, for example, in the motivation part, the learning aims are divided. So everybody has uh, some sort of motivation. So make sure to mention their motivations clearly. And again, make sure your assignment is about the whole group. Now, some centers would ask you to write about one learner. So then the assignment will be about one learner. So also, again, make sure to read your guidelines carefully. Here, for example, I mentioned one strength and one weakness, but again, you will need to fill in all the boxes. This is just an example. Okay. So in the grammar, for example, one of the strengths is correctly using type 1 conditional. This is for an intermediate group. In the weaknesses, the superlative good is wrongly used. So why did this happen? Because first language interference. Okay, so you will need to mention the reason why the weakness happens. Okay, and of course you will need to mention examples. Now down here, you will need to use two activities to uh, help students improve on the areas mentioned above. Two of the areas mentioned, two activities, that's it. Okay, as the person mentioned, and make sure you add the activity itself in the appendix. Okay, do not forget to add the activity and the word count. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions in relation to your assignment after this explanation, if anything is not clear, please ask your tutor. Okay, thank you so much.